Greetings, scholars. So before we get started on our essay, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about brainstorming and free writing. Just like when we are getting ready to have a conversation or a confrontation, whether it's something sort of negative, as a teacher, I have parent-teacher conferences, I have to talk to the principal, maybe you're going in for a job interview, or you're getting ready to speak to a group of people, we generally tend to prepare a little bit for what we're going to talk about. And that might mean that we're practicing, that might mean that we're repeating things to ourselves till it sounds right. We do the same thing in writing. Before we present a formal argument, we want to make sure that we've done some planning, that we've done some drafting, that we've worked through the process. Writing an essay almost never is a one and done endeavor. It's almost always something that we want to use some preparation before we try it. Now, this is going to be counterintuitive to what most of you are used to. I know that most students know that there's a writing process, but oftentimes we put it off until the last minute, believing that I can just write an essay tonight before it's due and it'll be fine. But for a good argument, we want to do some good planning. So the first thing we want to do is we just kind of want to get our ideas out in the world, okay? And one of the ways that I like to do this is through things like charts and maps. If we're doing a compare and contrast, for example, let's say that I'm comparing and contrasting Tom Hanks's college experience to Janine Capo-Cruset's college experience, I might do a Venn diagram. No, I am not an artist. But something like this, we have two circles. What they share in common goes here in the center. So they both went to college. They both were not from rich families, so poor to middle class. And neither of them really had college in their family as sort of a common thing, okay? There was no culture of college. It's not clear whether Tom Hanks was a first-generation student or simply a student, but these are some things they have in common. Neither of them knew what they were doing. Neither of them really had the money, and both of them were going to college. Then we would put the outliers on the outside. So for instance, I might put Hanks up here and Capo-Cruset over here. We know that Hanks went to a community college and had a relatively good experience. We know that Capo-Cruset went to an Ivy League college and had some difficulties, at least at first. So this is one way, especially if you're comparing and contrasting, to sort of just get some ideas out there. Of course, you can also use lists and things like that. It's really up to you, your preference, but the point is to start organizing the information that you have. Another helpful technique for pre-writing is the mind map. Sometimes it's called the bubble chart, right? This is something like this, where we put our main idea in the middle. So let's say I'm talking about reading and writing, and I'm focusing on Alexi and King. Okay, so I'm going to put reading and writing. And the mind map I find really helpful for deciding what goes in each paragraph. Remember that each paragraph is its own sort of smaller argument related to the thesis statement, okay? So if my thesis, and I haven't developed my thesis yet, but I know that I'm going to be talking about reading and writing, okay? And so the first thing I want to talk about that both of them touch on is why it's important, okay? Why is reading and writing important? Alexi talks about it more than King does, but they both do speak about the importance of reading specifically. Okay? And by the way, in these things, you do not have to write perfect sentences or anything like this. Nobody's going to see this but you. Okay? And then maybe I want to talk, maybe there's a whole other paragraph that we can talk about that has to do with persistence. They both talk about persistence, about doing the thing over and over again. So I might put persistence here. Okay, and then sort of the submap to this is that I might pull out some passages or examples. I might put it just a little reminder of what an example is that maybe King talks about or maybe Alexi talks about, and that we will turn into our concrete details, our evidence. The last one that I want to talk to you about is my favorite one, because it's not only helpful for starting the essay, it is also really helpful for breaking out of writer's block, and that is free writing and sometimes looping. And so I'm going to briefly explain what this is, and then I want you to give it a try. Okay, so when we free write, we take a topic, maybe a question or something that we're striving to answer in our essay, and we write about it for a specific amount of time without stopping. Consider this like rambling. We're just writing whatever comes to our mind. If nothing comes to your mind, write nothing's coming to my mind as many times as you need to. And we don't want to focus on grammar or sentence structure. If you get an idea, interrupt yourself, write whatever comes to mind. It doesn't matter. We're sort of dumping everything onto the page and then sifting through it. And what I love about this one is that you can do it as many times as you need to, and it helps you sort of get rid of the junk that's in your mind so that you can focus on what's important. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try this. You are going to stop this video or pause this video, and you're going to spend, I really recommend no more than 3 minutes. Some textbooks recommend 5 to 10 minutes, but my hands cramp up. You can type or handwrite. It doesn't matter. If you're handwriting, you might want to give yourself a little more time. And all you're going to do is babble about the topic. So I might start with, if I'm writing about Mike Rose and Sherman Alexie, and I'm talking about expectations and cultural expectations and class and things like that in education, then maybe my question is first, how do they both represent class in their essays, right? And then I might write, I'm going to write for 3 minutes without stopping. And that's the key. We don't stop writing. So if you find yourself stuck, don't stop, just write blah, 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 or whatever you want to. Keep the pen moving or keep the typing going. We don't want to correct ourselves. Do not backspace, do not erase, do not scribble out, do not correct. This is not the time to be grammatically correct. We're just dumping everything on the floor right now. So let's give that a try. I want you to set yourself a timer for 2 to 3 minutes, and you can either type or write, come up with something that you want to say, something that's not quite clear to you. Put the question at the top, pause the video. Okay, you should have written for about 2 to 3 minutes, and now you've got all kinds of stuff on your page, I hope. The next step is to go through and first eliminate anything that wasn't relevant, or if it was relevant but not necessarily relevant to this topic, put it off to the side. Maybe highlight it in a different color. This belongs in a different topic. Then I want you to underline or highlight the most important things you said. Remember, you might not even have full sentences most of the time, but I want you to highlight some key things that you got out of that activity. Now, after you've done that, you may need to pause to do this. Now, I want you to write the answer to the question in 1 or 2 sentences, okay? So, if my question is, how do Mike Rose and Sherman Alexie show class, economic class in education, then maybe I've babbled on and on, but I caught a few things. For instance, Mike Rose says that they weren't really expected, because they were lower class, they weren't really expected to do anything other than blue collar jobs, service jobs, janitorial jobs. And even in school, students and teachers know or have learned to treat these jobs as nothing, as meaningless, devalued, right? On the other hand, I might have mentioned that Sherman Alexie says that because he was from a reservation, because he was Native American, he and his classmates were automatically expected to fail. Both of these have to do with class, because if you didn't know, reservations tend to be lower economic class. And so we can talk about how the expectation is generally for poor people to fail or to do poor things. I could put this into a couple of sentences, and now I've got the start of a topic sentence. I've got something that starts a paragraph, right? All right, so that activity, and you can keep going on that activity. There's a thing called looping, where you take that statement, you make another question related to that, and you do another free writing activity. I hope that this helps you. I hope that you use these strategies to get those ideas out. Happy writing.